Hi everybody, my name's Anne-Marie Towers and I am a Professor of Social Care here at the University of Kent, and I'm here today to tell you a little bit of information about the second round of our research and training fellowships. Now before I begin, I just have to flash up this disclaimer. This is just to say that everything that I say in this presentation are the views of the authors and not of the funder, the National Institute for Health and Care Research, or those of the Department of Health and Social Care. So just a little bit of a reminder for those who are less familiar. The Kent Research Partnership is a 4-year programme of work funded by the National Institute for Health and Care Research, led by the University of Kent and Kent County Council Adult Social Care. The aim of the partnership is to basically develop a research culture in Kent around adult social care and really build capacity within our region. And we're doing this through a variety of different things, including communities of practice, having researchers embedded within adult social care, and also running research and training fellowships, which is what I'm going to be talking about today. If you're interested in finding out more about the project overall, then please do just take a look at our webpage. There's a link there for those of you who are interested. So some of you will already be familiar with round 1 of the research and training fellowships. These were basically funding opportunities that are designed to build research capacity in the sector. They're designed to fund training for applicants, but also projects of relevance and interest to social care practice. What's really special about these opportunities is that you don't have to already be an established researcher or somebody who's got a PhD or a master's to be able to apply for this money. And from your employer's perspective, what's really good is that we're not just offering to pay for, say, training or something like this, but we will also use the fellowships to backfill or fund some of your salary costs, basically to free you up to undertake these fellowships. And that makes them, I think, quite attractive for the sector and hopefully makes it more possible for people to apply. We don't just provide the funding itself, we also provide support and mentorship throughout your fellowship. And in round 1, we funded 2 £90,000 fellowships, which have started this year in 2023. We're now launching round 2, and for round 2 we're going to do something a little bit different. We've basically got around another 90 to 100k available to spend on fellowships, rather than having sort of a competition which one very big fellowship would get funded. We've decided to limit the amount that you can apply for to £30,000 per fellowship. So it can be less if all you, for example, wanted to do was a little bit of research training around a particular topic, but it could be right up into that £30,000 if, for example, you wanted to do both some training and maybe a small springboard type project of your own within that time. So up to £30,000 available. So how do you know if this kind of fellowship might be for you? So here are some things that would be good for you to consider. Some questions, and if the answer to these questions is yes or maybe, then do give us get in touch with us, send us an email, or ask to have a meeting with one of us, and we can take you through this and have a talk to you about your ideas. So really, these fellowships are for people who want to take some time out to pause, reflect, and look for evidence to potentially improve your practice and the practice of your team. They're really suitable for people who are interested in developing the service that they work within, and they would like to explore how best to do this. So again, looking for evidence or best practice information. Be great for people who've got a good idea for service improvement, but just not quite sure about how they might take that forward. And also for people who are basically looking for different ways to enhance or develop their career. So a kind of a form of CPD, if you like. Who is eligible to apply? So to be eligible for one of these fellowships, you have to be working in adult social care in Kent. That's really important. So although some of our outreach activities and our communities of practice can be joined by anybody working in adult social care or conducting research in adult social care across the country, these opportunities are specifically Kent focused. You need to be employed by a social care organisation, so there has to be an employing organisation who we can fund your salary to. You have to be able to demonstrate a commitment to evidence-based practice. So we're looking to see that sort of passion and that commitment in your application form. Essentially, fellowships are funding opportunities for you. It's investment in you as an individual. And so it's really important that that comes across in your application if you want to be competitive and successful. We're looking for a commitment to our communities of practice. So it's no good applying for one of these fellowships but not joining in with anything else that we do within the Kent Research Partnership. It'll be really important to be even eligible to apply. You have to be a member of at least one of our communities of practice and be somebody who regularly comes along and engages with them. So if you haven't already done this, then do sign up. You need to be able to show that you've got both the right attitude and the right aptitude to learn new skills. Particularly for round 2, the emphasis of the fellowships is very much on building your research skills, things like training. So showing that you've got the right attitude and that you're able to take and learn new materials and take that on board and apply that to practice is going to be really important. So that's something that we're going to be really looking for. We don't expect you to already have those skills, but we expect you to demonstrate that you've got that attitude and aptitude to learn. And finally, and really critically, is that you need to really demonstrate that your employer supports your application. In fact, we even ask for a signature from somebody within your employing organisation. Depending on your grade and the nature of your role, it will obviously vary as to who that is, so I won't go into the details of that now, but we certainly we'd want to see some employer support for this. And the reason that's so critical is because we're going to be providing salary backfill for your time, so it's really important that they will demonstrate that they can provide somebody else to do your role for you so that you're not working, say, 7 days a week instead of 5, and also that you will be given that protected time to attend training and spend time on your fellowship, because that's really going to be really critical to your success. So what kind of thing are we looking to fund? Well, as I just said, unlike round 1 where we were looking for people who were almost research ready, so could pick up, had an idea for a project and wanted to lead on that, and although training was certainly an element of the round 1 fellowships, it maybe wasn't as big as what we're looking for in the round 2 fellowships. So as you can probably see from this slide, I've put the emphasis more on research training than research projects. So are you somebody who's got a good idea but really hasn't ever done any research before? Maybe you've done an undergraduate degree or you've done a diploma or an MVQ around social care, and research is something you're always interested in. You like hearing about it, you like engaging with it. Maybe you've been a participant in research in the past and it's something that you would find quite exciting and you're interested in doing, but you would need some training around that. So this could be training that would be like a stepping stone to doing something bigger in the future. So it could be very general, like just doing some general research methods training, doing some training on research ethics or analysis if you've got a role. Maybe you're already working as an analyst within your organisation, or you're used to dealing with data as part of your everyday job, but you'd like to do some extra kind of training around analysis that could be used in a research project. So you could apply for something like that with this fellowship, or you could apply for something very, very specific. So if you've got a specific project idea in mind that you might want to undertake in the future, or a very small project that you might want to do as part of this fellowship, and you know that you need very specific training for it, then you could include those costs in this fellowship application. So some specific examples include interview training. That might be qualitative interview, it might be closed sort of questionnaire type interview training. It could be around questionnaire design, so you want to send a survey out maybe to your colleagues or to people who are using social care support. It could be academic writing. Maybe it's been a really long time since you did anything academic and you feel like you really need to build your skills and confidence around academic writing styles. Or it could be that actually what you really want to do is scope the literature and find out, gather some evidence that will inform practice. So what you really want to do is a scoping review or maybe a literature review. So attending some training on that. We will also fund small springboard projects. Now, £30,000 sounds like a lot, but when it's paying for your salary and it includes some money for training, it doesn't actually go that far. So this is why we're calling them small springboard projects. So these might be projects that will lead to bigger bits of research in the future. So this is the kind of thing that we might fund. This is certainly not all that we would fund, but this is just to start giving you some ideas of the kind of breadth and scope of what we might fund. So a literature review to find research evidence for a particular topic or question. For example, I've heard people have interested in the past around answering questions such as how best to prevent dehydration of older people, particularly maybe people living in care homes or people who are no longer interested in drinking. And how do you best support drinking in those settings? How can you use music to provide comfort and reassurance to people living with dementia? So these are the kinds of questions that might crop up in everyday practice. And this is something that you might be able to do a literature or an evidence sort of scoping review about. And so having some training and undertaking that might well be within the scope of this fellowship. You may wish to do some interviews, for example, to evaluate an intervention or to evaluate a new way of working, or maybe just to find out how people who are using your services feel about something, for example, satisfaction with a particular type of equipment service. As I mentioned on a previous slide, you may have more of a data role within your organisation. And you might have an idea about, you collect all this information, this data, as part of routine data collection or practice, or maybe surveys that your employer already sends out every year to people who are using services. And you can think that it's being underused and that data sitting there and it would be ripe for the picking. In which case you may wish to do some training and conduct a small bit of research analysing that existing data. So not having to go out there and do questionnaires or interviews and collect new data, but make best use of the data you've already got within your organisation. An example of that might be what factors are associated with people quitting their adult social care job in the first 6 months of employment. So you may have data about the people that have applied for jobs, that have been awarded those jobs, and then the people that have left within 6 months versus the people who haven't left within 6 months. And you might be able to do some analysis to understand better why, what factors might predict the people who leave versus the people who stay. So these are just some ideas, certainly not an exhaustive list. So I've given you quite a lot of information. I thought it might be quite helpful to just take you through how you might tie all this together. So let's say you are working as a senior support worker in a care home at the moment, and you've got a question, which is how can we best support colleagues or staff working in care homes to cope when residents die? It's a really important question. It's actually something that I've been involved in the past, which is why I chose it. And the method that would be best suited to answering this question would be simply a review of the existing research evidence. And we might call this a literature review or a scoping review of the research evidence. And so the training that you would need to be able to undertake that research exercise would be training in literature reviewing. So we could find a course, cost that course for you, and include that in your fellowship application. But also then think about, well, okay, so once you've done the training, which might be, 4 or 5 days or something like this of your time, how much time would you then need to actually do the searching, read all the evidence, and then sort of analyse it, understand it, and write it up and turn it into something that can be used in practice? And I've given some examples of what that might be, but again, these are just ideas or examples, and it's not an exhaustive list. So you might, for example, say, well, after I've done the review, I'm going to write a best practice guide for managers or staff about how best to support your colleagues when residents die. You might want to develop some training materials that could be used within your organisation or even shared broader than that. It depending on the time that you've got and the extent to which you can do something really sort of academically rigorous, then you might even be able to write up some kind of academic publication. You know, lots of people publish literature reviews and scoping reviews, so this is certainly something that is publishable, depending on how much time you can dedicate to it, obviously. We don't expect all of our fellowships to lead to an academic publication in round 2 necessarily, but certainly it is a possibility. So the kind of costs that you would include there would be your training costs, maybe some academic support. So you might have a mentor that our researchers and residents will connect you with, maybe somebody who's got particular interest or expertise in your topic, your research question. And that person might say, well, I will support you. A day a month, you know, that might be sort of an hour's meeting every week, and maybe a little bit of time helping you by reviewing, you know, what you're writing up or talking to you about what you're finding. So they might say roughly a day a month of my time, and we might want to fund that so that person's available to support you. So you could cost that time in for that mentor or supervisor. You could also think, well, actually, as part of my role, how many days a week do I want to spend on this? And again, depending on what you're setting out to do will determine really how long you need. So we may be that we think that you could probably do it in 2 days a week over the course of a year, for example, and get everything done in that time. For other people, it may be better to say that they're going to sort of have a sabbatical from their day job and be full-time for 6 months. It really depends on what works for you, your employer, and your role, and also the kind of fellowship project that you want to do, or the training that you need. So these are just examples, and each case will be very individual. And again, I'll just say that it's really important to remember that unlike, say, a research project or something like that, fellowships are really about you, about supporting you as individuals. So they really have to be tailored to your needs, and they have to be manageable. They have to fit with your workload, and they have to fit with your interests. So although I've given you some kind of examples in this presentation today, I don't want you to go away thinking, oh, I don't quite fit with that, so therefore I can't do it. I think the key thing is the key message to take away from this is that this is a really great opportunity, and if you've got some ideas and you want to explore it further, then do just come and talk to us about that, and we can help you think about whether this is right for you. So if you're interested in finding out more, or you're interested in applying for the fellowships, first things first, if you haven't already, then make sure that you have joined one or both of our communities of practice. You can do this by popping us an email to Kent Research Partnership at kent.ac.uk. And I would also strongly recommend that you have a chat with one of our 3 researchers in residence, Wenjing, Vanessa or Lily, and they will be able to offer you advice, take you through the next steps. If you've got an idea for a particular research project, like you want to do a literature review, you want to look at some of that data, you want to do some interviews with people, then a great thing to do, which will really help and strengthen your application, is to pitch your idea to our community of practice members. So you can come along to one of our monthly meetings, or we could even offer to hold a special session, and you could get some advice, and people share your ideas with the community of practice members. You could also get advice from our lived experience working group members, who are fantastic, and will give you their advice and experience as people who have got experience of adult social care, either because they receive adult social care themselves or because their family members do. So they may be informal carers, for example. Once you are a member of our communities of practice, you will have access to an online platform known as Glass Cubes, and all of the guidance, the application form itself, will be on Glass Cubes, so you can't actually access any of that information unless you are already a community of practice member. The other nice thing about Glass Cubes is that it gives you the opportunity to communicate with other community of practice members. So let's say, for example, you don't have time to prepare something and get a slot at one of our community of practice meetings before the deadline. You could pitch your idea on glass cubes, and people could give you comments and feedback on it in a written format. So it's another way of kind of scoping out what people think of your idea, which could be really, really helpful. The other thing to watch out for coming soon is that there are going to be more presentations like this one from the Kent Research Partnership team, taking you through the different parts of the application process and the form itself. So for those of you who are on glass cubes already and have had a look at the application form and thinking, oh, I just don't know where to begin, then over the next couple of weeks these presentations will be coming online, and hopefully these will help you work through that and answer any of your questions. So some dates for your diaries. The deadline for the round 2 fellowship applications is the 23rd of June. So you've got about 6 or 7 weeks from now to apply for these fellowships. Sounds like a long time. It isn't. So I can't recommend enough that you start as soon as possible. One of the biggest mistakes that people make is leaving it too late, and a week or two before the deadline they think they can just start now and expect people to give them feedback, help them with their ideas, help them write sections on the form, and I promise you, you will not have time. So please do start that process as soon as possible. Feedback to applicants. All applications will be reviewed. They will be reviewed by somebody who has an academic background, somebody who has a practice background, and somebody who's got lived experience of adult social care. So you will get 3 reviewers per application. That means that they will read your application and they will score your application. And based on that information, this will then go to a panel who will look at all the different applications that we get and give feedback and decide who we will fund, who we might fund but ask for maybe some minor changes, or ask them to address some queries or comments that we might have as a panel. And then in August there will be an opportunity to make final decisions with a view that your earliest start date for the round 2 fellowships will be October 2023. The reason that's feels like a long way away is that by the time we've made those decisions in August and then organised contracts with your employing organisations, that will take most of September. So again, don't underestimate how long these things take to organise. I say earlier start date. If, for example, in discussions with your employer, you think October is not convenient, you don't want to start till maybe November or something, that's absolutely fine. The key thing is that you cost your fellowship accordingly, so be conscious of how many months you've got to undertake your fellowship, and make sure that you leave yourself enough time. The reason that I say that is that all projects must end by the end of 2024, or the absolute latest, the end of January 2025. So if you're starting in October, you've probably got around a 15-month fellowship length, maybe 16-month if you're going to the end of January, but you don't have even a couple of years to do these fellowships. So if you delay the start, then you basically are giving yourself less time to do your fellowship, and that may be absolutely fine depending on what you want to do. But for those of you who are thinking about doing a project, that's just something that you do need to bear in mind. Okay, so we always get some questions, and a lot of the same questions come up, so I thought I'd try and head some of those off right now. So how much research experience do I need to apply for one of these fellowships? The answer is you don't need any research experience, and that's what makes these so different to all the other opportunities that are out there at the moment in terms of research capacity building. So you don't need any research experience, but you do need to show that aptitude. So prove to us that you're capable of learning, prove to us that you've got the commitment and the right attitude to put the work in, and that kind of passion, I guess, for your subject. That's what we're looking for these fellowships. Is this an individual award, or can I do a job share? So really, these are individual awards. It's quite difficult to do a fellowship for more than one person. So although we may make exceptions if there was a really strong case. So let's say you're doing a job share with somebody as part of your day job. and you just felt that you wanted to do a day a week each on something, and you could work as a team and you can demonstrate that you're already working as a team, we might consider it. But this certainly isn't something that I would expect to be split between 5 or 6 people, because again, £30,000 sounds like a lot, but it doesn't go that far, particularly when you factor in training costs. So really we're looking for individuals to apply for these awards. Is it part-time or full-time? The answer is that is completely up to you. So at the moment, as part of the round 1 fellowships, we have somebody doing this full-time. So they have literally been seconded out of their day job, and they're doing this almost like you would do as a student, full-time. But we also have somebody who is only going to be doing it part-time, and the other half of their week they're going to be doing their normal day job. So it is really about identifying what will work best both for your training and project ideas, and also for you and your employer. What's realistic? What would work best? Would it be better for you to disappear and have someone else do your job for a few months so that you can focus on this and they can just get someone in full time to replace you? Or would it be better to do a job share as part of your day job, and would you feel more comfortable maybe 2 or 3 days a week working on your fellowship? So that's something for you to consider. Can I apply if I'm already a student, an apprentice, or a newly qualified person, or somebody on secondment? So the most important thing is, so if you're newly qualified, for example, newly qualified social worker, absolutely you can apply. But the most important thing really about this point is you absolutely need to have this discussion with your employer. It's got to work for them as well as for you. Otherwise you won't get the support. And so this is a conversation to have really early on. What your employer gets out of this is that they get funding for your salary, so that they should be able to, they're not losing any money by you doing this. They should be able to have funding to replace you and provide that backfill. And they are also getting free training and investment in a member of their staff and a member of their team. So you will come back to your employer with new skills, and hopefully some lots of learning and lots of skills to show for what you've done, with both research skills and other skills. It will be hopefully evidence and learning that you can take back to your teams about the particular topic that you've been interested in. So I would say that if you need to have that discussion as early as possible with your employer, and even better, come up with something that your employer would find really useful for you to do. How long can fellowships last? Well, earliest start date for this round is October 2023. Absolute no extensions past the end of January 2025. So you've got that window, and again, a lot of that will depend on what your question is, what you're aiming to do with your fellowship, and whether you are doing it full-time or part-time. So all these fellowships will last for different lengths of time. Can you go over £30,000? No. There may be another round of funding, but we cannot guarantee that. So we have around £90,000 to £100,000 left. In an ideal world, I would like to spend that in this next round of fellowships. So that means, if everyone applied for £30,000, we could fund 3. If some people apply for 15 or 20, it may be that we can fund 4 or 5. If we don't, but we will not fund applications that are not strong enough. So if you leave it to the week before and your application isn't strong enough, then we won't fund it. We will therefore potentially have another round in the future, but there's no guarantees. So my advice would be, if this is something you're interested in doing, start that process now, and assume that this is your opportunity to do this, and there may not be another opportunity in the future. We're already quite lucky that we've had a round 2, because at one point we only thought there would be 1 round of funding. Okay, So that's it from me. I've taken enough of your time. I've been talking for about half an hour, which I think is quite long enough. Do keep an eye out for the other presentations from my colleagues, which will take you through the application process. Do drop us a line if you're interested in applying, or if you're not already a member of our communities of practice. And we look forward to hearing from you and hearing your ideas and helping you with the application process. If you're interested, if you think this might be for you, then my advice is get in touch, have a chat with us, and we can help you work through that and think through what your options are. Brilliant. Thank you, everybody. Bye.